Chapter 1. Castle recruited. The safe house in Knickerbocker Village was a crypt, its peeling walls scarred with the city's neglect, the air heavy with gun oil, and the faint, greasy tang of old pizza boxes stacked in a corner. A sagging cot slumped against one wall, its sheets twisted from nights of restless torment, while a metal table gleamed with an arsenal, pistols with worn grips, rifles propped like silent sentinels, a Cobb bar knife glinting with menace. A shelf held a shrine, a faded photo of Maria and the kids, their smiles ablaze in Frank's gut, beside a candle unlit since their deaths, its wick black and brittle. Frank sat alone, a hulking figure of scars and muscle, his hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee spiked with whiskey, the silence a weight pressing into his bones. Loneliness was Frank's penance, a self-imposed exile that gnawed at him like a starved dog. He'd severed every tie, family, friends, anyone who might bleed for his sins. His mother, his sister, Frances, they were voices on voicemails he deleted, their warmth a danger he couldn't afford. The mob had come for his sister once, back when he was too green to see the threat. He'd ended it, blood on his hands, bodies in the dirt. But the lesson stuck. Family was a liability. He lived in shadows now, a ghost moving from one hole to another, the weight of solitude heavier than any gun he carried. His iPhone buzzed in his pocket, the screen's harsh light cutting through the dimness as he checked his voicemails. The first was from Francis Esposito, his mother's nephew, 14 years his senior, and the closest thing he'd had to a big brother growing up. Francis, his namesake, had always been the one to pull him out of scraps, to teach him how to throw a punch and mean it. "Frankie, it's Francis," the voice crackled, warm but edged with worry. "Ma's planning a big dinner next Sunday. You know how she gets, wants the whole crew there. Been too long, man. Come through, yeah?" Frank's thumb hovered over the delete button, his chest tightening. "Love you, Francis, but I can't. No time for family. Not now, not ever." He deleted the message, the action mechanical, final. The next voicemail was Valentina's, her voice slithering through the speaker like silk laced with venom. "Castle, darling, it's me. Don't tell me you're brooding in some dive bar again. Got a job for you. Big money, bigger stakes. Call me back unless you're too busy playing hermit. Oh, and wear something nice for once, would you?" Her sardonic chuckle lingered, a lure he couldn't ignore. He didn't like her games, her smugness, but the cash was good, and good cash bought good guns. The air shifted, a sharp click of heels slicing through the silence like a blade through flesh. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine strode into the warehouse, a vision of calculated menace, her tailored black suit cutting the gloom like a razor's edge. Her dark hair was pulled tight, a sleek crown framing eyes that gleamed with predatory mischief, her smirk a weapon honed to wound deeper than words. The faint scent of sandalwood and steel trailed her, a perfume that clashed with the warehouse's decay, as she set a tablet on the table with a deliberate clack, its screen glowing with cold blue light. Her presence was a storm, her every move a calculated strike, and Frank's hand twitched toward the pistol at his hip, instinct warring with the knowledge that she wasn't here to fight. Valentina's energy filled the room, her sharp features framed by a sleek office, all glass and steel, a world away from the warehouse's decay. Her eyes, bright with mischief, raked over him, a playful glint softening her predatory edge. "Well, well, Frankie Castle," she purred, her voice a velvet whip, teasing yet barbed. Or should I say, Peter Castiglione. "Gotta hand it to you. The whole rebrand shtick is working. That tortured soul vibe, I like it." "I bet you do," replied Castle. "What brings you down to these parts?" "Well, obviously not for a social hour. You have this whole Unabomber Howard Hughes thing going on. Am I interrupting you?" Frank poured whiskey into his coffee, the amber liquid swirling like a storm in the mug, his queen's drawl rough as cracked pavement. "You didn't have to drag your fancy ass all the way from D.C., Valentina. Got your damn voicemail already." "Yeah, I sent that like 48 hours ago," Valentina said. "The job I have for you is time-sensitive. How do you know I'm interested?" Frank asked, sitting in his chair, legs wide, about to sip his whiskey-laced coffee. "The money, for starters," Valentina said with a faux smile. Frank scoffed. "I am not some fucking errand boy for the feds, Valentina. I don't care what incentives you add on top. Look at you, Castle. Cut off from the world, all buff and brooding. Bet it gets all the lonely hearts in Brooklyn swooning. But this is serious, Castle, not just about money. I know you're not some dull hired hand. So hear me out, or spend another Friday night polishing your guns in that sad little bunker of yours, dreaming of the good old days." Frank's jaw clenched, his patience fraying like a worn rope, the whiskeys burn a faint anchor against the tide of her words. Valentina had reeled him in before, $300,000 to bury Philly mob boss Luigi Vessi after John Pilgrim's bloodbath in 19, a job that left his hands stained and his gut sour. She'd even located Maria's wedding band, a twisted gift that bound him to her with gratitude and rage, the medal now hanging on a dog tag chain around his neck, a sacred weight no one touched. Her reach was a noose, and she knew every nerve to pinch, every wound to prod, her smirk a taunt that made his fists itch. Frank leaned forward, the chair creaking under his bulk, the mug's heat seeping into his calloused palms. The warehouse's gloom pressed in, the bulb's flicker casting shadows that danced like ghosts across Valentina's face, her eyes glinting with a hunter's thrill. "Cut the bullshit, Valentina," he snapped, his voice a low growl, clipped and sharp, each word a blade honed by years of slicing through lies. The air crackled with tension, the faint drip of water a counterpoint to the storm brewing between them. "You got 5 minutes to make this worth my time. Talk or march those pumps out my door." Valentina's eyes sparked, catching the vein pulsing in Frank's temple, her smile curling tighter. "Touchier than usual, Castle," she teased, her voice dripping with mock concern. "What's got you so wound up? Bad coffee or bad dreams?" Frank's face stayed stone, his eyes cold as the steel at his hip, giving her nothing but a hard stare, the silence a challenge. Valentina leaned back, her suit gleaming like obsidian in the dim light, her fingers tapping the tablet with a rhythm that echoed the warehouse's drip. "Fine, 1.9 million, cash, wired to whatever shady account you're using these days," she said, her tone smooth but edged with impatience. One job, one target. Her words hung heavy, a promise of blood and profit, her eyes glinting like a predator's in the dark. Frank's eyes narrowed, suspicion coiling like a snake in his gut, his hand brushing the pistol under his jacket, the metal cold against his skin. "I'm not just some hired gun," he growled, his voice a low rumble, thick with distrust. "Whoever I take out is already owed a bullet. Who's the mark?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, a hint of glee in her tone. A mutant. Mutants were a shadow on the world's edge, their existence whispered since the late 1950s when science cracked open their secrets. Tales of enhanced beings stretched back to humanity's dawn, but it was Steve Rogers, Captain America, who lit the fuse. Governments scrambled to dissect the superhuman. Dr. Charles Xavier's genetic breakthroughs gave mutants a name, though they stayed a ghost to most. Maybe 10,000 roamed the states, their powers a wild card. Some bent light, others broke bones with a thought. The masses barely noticed, but the streets knew better. Mutants turned their gifts to crime, slipping through cracks no cop could seal, their names whispered in New York's alleys alongside tales of dope and blood. Frank's mind churned, piecing together what little he knew about mutants. They were a ghost in the public's eye, a whispered threat barely acknowledged, their numbers so small, maybe 10,000 across the states, that most dismissed them as urban legend. Frank had seen enough to know better. Mutants were wild cards, their powers unpredictable, their motives murky. Trouble with a capital T. Mutants are messy business. Who and why, he said, his voice flat, tactical. Valentina replied, her tone dipping into a conspiratorial hush. "This one's a rare breed, uniquely dangerous, with a little army trailing his coattails. Samuel Hezekiah Smith. Ring any bells? Maybe from that cult up in Harlem, the Church of the Saved?" Castle, a former Catholic, wasn't interested in involving himself with religion or mutants, surely not both. "What is this, some type of UFO cult?" "If only they were so benign," replied Valentina. "The Saved started as the Church of the Saved in the late 90s after the Harlem fires of 97. It was founded by Mingus Smith, an ex-Marine with a dishonorable discharge and a grudge as big as the borough. It had morphed into a movement, a threat, preaching mutant pride and spitting in the system's eye. Mingus was dead now, gunned down, some said, and his son Sammy had taken the reins. Sammy Smith, 29, was a firebrand, his ambition a blaze that lit up Harlem's streets. He'd stormed through CUNY, stacking degrees in sociology and political science, his thesis on mutant rights and racial justice a Molotov cocktail in academic halls. His speeches, sharp, rhythmic, laced with Harlem's pulse, went viral, hashtags like #mutantrizing trending on Twitter, his face a fixture on CNN and Fox, trading barbs with pundits who couldn't match his fire. Young, black, and unafraid, he wove mutant pride into a gospel of resistance. His followers, mutants and outcasts, clad in faded jackets with crimson crosses, their eyes alight with fervor in the shadow of the church's boarded spire. Under Sammy, the Saved shed its cult stigma, becoming a refuge for the broken. Mutants with glowing veins, kids with nowhere to go, all drawn to his voice. The church on Lenox Avenue was a fortress of cracked brick, its walls scarred with graffiti, Elohim's chosen in blood-red paint, the fist of Elohim patrolling its edges, their crimson armbands flashing like warning signs. They weren't just believers, they were a militia. Mutants with powers as wild as their scars, their loyalty a steel trap forged in Harlem's ashes. So, they're a mutant cult. Who the fuck cares? You want him dead, pick up a pistol, Frank said before drinking a sip of his hardened coffee. I don't take every job offered, and you are perfect for this one. Because this guy isn't your usual mark. Valentina's grin twisted darker, a shadow passing over her polished mask. Oh, is he? Frank chuckled under his breath before taking a sip. He's a saint to his people, Frank, but saints can torch empires. Anti-government, anti-rich, pro-chaos. Everything that makes the suits uptown clutch their pearls. Sounds like a you problem, Valentina, Frank said, smiling as he sipped his coffee. Yes, Middle America is turned off by his woke agenda. But it's not just us who need to worry. The cult has done some dark things, human and non-human trafficking. See, some mutants have unique gifts, and powerful people will pay top dollar for a special mutant. So, the cult's into some dirty shit. Send the feds in, and do what you people do. Isn't that your job? Frank was repulsed by the allegations made against the cult. Valentina's eyes narrowed, her smile a thin blade as she leaned closer, the tablet's glow casting harsh shadows across her face. You think I'd waste my time if it was that easy? She snapped, her voice cutting through the warehouse's gloom. What, you scared of a few mutants, Castle? Too tough for the big bad Punisher? Her taunt was a jab, probing for weakness, but Frank's face stayed stone, his mind flickering to past jobs, mutants he'd faced years ago, their powers passive, nothing like the storm she described. Why me? You've got your own hit squad, Fontaine. Valentina's smile widened, a predator savoring the hunt. Because, Castle, you're not just any hitman. You're a goddamn force of nature, a walking apocalypse with a trigger finger. You don't just kill, you erase, clean and quiet, no loose ends. Frank's brow creased, his lips a tight line as he set the mug down with a dull clunk. His name was a blade, feared, revered, a weight he carried like the dog tags around his neck, Maria's wedding band glinting against his chest. The Punisher was a legend, but each kill added to the shame, a stain he couldn't scrub. Get to the point, he growled, his voice a rough scrape, thick with the ghosts of past jobs, Valentina's dirty gigs, each one a step deeper into her web. Mutants are a crapshoot. I've seen 'em, small time, years back. This smells like you're holding out on me. Valentina's fingers tapped the tablet, pulling up a file that glowed with classified seals, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. How about this for a kooky connection? You remember William Rawlins? The name hit like a bullet, and Frank's fists balled tight, knuckles whitening, the air thickening with the weight of memory. Rawlins, Agent Orange, the CIA snake who'd greenlit the hit on Maria and the kids, a wound Valentina had prodded before with Maria's ring. What's the link? He demanded, his voice a low snarl, the warehouse's shadows seeming to close in, the drip of water a heartbeat in the silence. Her voice dropped, a velvet noose tightening. Sammy's old man, Mingus Smith, was Rawlins' shadow during Desert Storm. Mingus was booted with dishonor while Rawlins ascended to the CIA. But before then they were thick as thieves, running ops that make your skin crawl. Now, Mingus had nothing to do with your family, but there's an interesting little coincidence. You have no shame, do you, Valentina? Asked Frank. Guilt by lineage, enough to make it personal. Valentina was unbothered by Castle's criticism. Rage boiled low in Frank's gut, a furnace stoked by memory. Can you even prove it? Of course I can, Castle. She tapped her tablet, sending a digital lifeline to his phone. Grainy photos, scrawled notes, yellowed military logs. Feast your eyes. Mingus and Rawlins, hip to hip, and the Save's been washing blood money from Harlem to the Potomac. You know, the Church of the Saved managed to get a lot of federal grants. Makes you wonder what kind of relationships a disgraced mutant cult leader had to have to get $7.5 million from the U.S. government from 2001 to 2014. Sounds like it's your fuck-up to me, replied Frank, placing his empty coffee mug down. In a way, yes, Valentina confessed. This is your chance to correct things for us and get paid to do it. How does this connect to this Sammy guy? Sammy's the heir apparent with the power to turn it nuclear. What kind of power? Frank probed. Valentina's eyes gleamed, her smirk a crescent of triumph as she leaned closer, the tablet's light casting her face in stark relief. You've never heard of this guy, like ever, have you? She taunted, relishing the hook sinking deeper. He's the real deal, Castle, a mutant with what they call the touch. His left hand heals anything, maybe even pulls folks back from death's door. Her voice was a purr, gloating in her power to lure him into her game. Frank shrugged blankly. You gotta be shitting me? Frank said, somewhat astonished. How? He's a mutant. But there has been an analysis of his power. It appears to be a blend of a few different power sets. His primary power set appears to be a type of psychokinesis. He can move objects with his mind. The extent is unknown, but it appears to be secondary to his ability to draw life force. Excuse me? Frank said, already feeling out of his depth, a small smirk emerging on his face. There's gotta be 100 people more qualified to do this than me. I don't think so. You have just the background needed to get this job done. If he can heal himself, how can I kill him? Asked Frank. Our intel confirms his healing isn't instant and requires stamina to heal himself. I suspect a bullet to the head could prevent healing. Valentina dropped a folder with Sammy's name with pictures and further details about his powers. Check this out. Frank read over the file. Sammy was believed to have telekinetic powers on the microscopic level. He blended his telekinesis with his life force absorption to heal people. From his right hand, Sammy could extract life force from humans, animals, and probably plants. There were also suspicions about telepathic powers, but it was unclear. He's very powerful, and he is one of many mutants that are a part of that cult. Their power sets vary. Valentina's voice lacked the animated bounce. She was serious now. You're not the only operative I am reaching out to. There are multiple mutant-run crime syndicates that I have been tasked to take down. You are expected to take out this one, quietly. So he's powerful with a cult of mutants involved in shady shit, Frank processed. Valentina's eyes gleamed, relishing the hook. Sammy's no ordinary preacher boy. He has social media attention that rivals yours, Punisher. He's on CNN, Fox News, looking all cute with his little suits and bright smile. Trading barbs with pundits, he comes off like a rather militant left-wing activist. He can and has activated other mutants to act on his behalf. This is a risky job you got for me, Valentina, Frank reflected. He scrolled fast, eyes darting over the scraps in the files. The dots connected, fuzzy, fractured, but there. Mingus and Rollins, a dirty knot tied to his past. Sammy, nothing solid. This doesn't nail him, he growled, voice rising, rough with a jagged edge of grief. You're dangling my family like a goddamn carrot, Fontaine. That's low, even for you. I am not your attack dog to sick on a hunch. Give me proof, or this is bullshit. Sorry, I don't have a YouTube video of Samuel Smith trafficking people and non-persons, but it's not something we have access to. That's why you are going in. Frank chuckled. Oh, I'm going in undercover, huh? Like 007? Not undercover, you're going in as Frank Castle, Valentina said with a conspiratorial smile. I know it looks jarring. The Saved is a cult, primarily black and Latino, and the few white associates and members are mutants. They are very selective with who they allow to study with. So how am I supposed to get in? Did you know how popular you are? I mean, to us Middle America, you are a terrifying hailstorm. Violent and crazy as cat shit. But to certain marginalized communities, the Punisher is a folk hero. Did you know Black Twitter called you Fugitive Bay? Oh, how cute. In a normal situation, we would send in someone who could blend in more. But you, Frank Castle, the Punisher, have a unique profile that could get you in. How so? Frank was still not buying it. Frank, you are a man who has chosen exile after seeking and obtaining retribution against the pieces of shit who murdered your family. And there you go again, Frank said, beginning to seethe. Here she was again, using his family as a lightning rod. Now you are seeking peace in the madness of this world. And how will you find that peace? Through the love of Elohim and the Church of the Saved. And they'll just go for that, I'm sure, Castle said, his skepticism clear. Frank's fingers tightened around the mug. The whiskeys burn a faint shield against the rage simmering in his gut. The plan was a jagged pill. Walk into a mutant cult as himself, the Punisher, a name that carried weight in New York streets where his skull logo was whispered as both curse and legend. They'll buy me strolling in, looking for salvation, he asked, his voice a low rumble, thick with doubt. I think you actually will be able to infiltrate because they are going to be attracted to the idea of the Punisher joining their flock. This group lusts after media attention. Frank winced at the idea. Doesn't seem like a quick and clean kill if everyone knows I'm in the group. His voice rasped like gravel under boots, low and worn, cutting through the stale air of the safe house. The single bulb overhead buzzed, its sickly yellow light flickering over the concrete walls, streaked with damp rot and the ghosts of old bloodstains. The weight of his black coat hung heavy on his shoulders, the fabric stiff with sweat and the faint tang of gunpowder. Across from him, Valentina perched on a crate, her posture all sharp edges and calculated ease, like a panther sizing up prey. Her dark eyes glittered, catching the light in a way that made them seem almost feral. She tilted her head, a smirk tugging at her lips, painted crimson against her olive skin. Once Sammy is gone, It won't matter, she said, her voice smooth as velvet but edged with steel, each word deliberate. Once he's out of the picture, his flock will scatter like roaches in the light. And his muscle? The fist of Elohim, paramilitary zealots, mutants bred to enforce his gospel. They're not just fanatics, Frank. They're walking bombs, each one ticking with powers you can't predict. The safe house smelled of mildew and rust, a damp chill seeping into the bones of the place, but Frank barely noticed. His gaze stayed locked on Valentina, suspicion curling in his chest like smoke. He'd seen cults before, street prophets screaming about salvation, their followers hollow-eyed and desperate. But this was different. Mutants, powers, a whole new kind of war he wasn't sure he could fight. "So you expect me to infiltrate this group?" he said, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a growl, full of mutants with God knows what abilities, kill their leader, and somehow walk away. A dry, bitter laugh scraped out of him, the sound rough as a busted engine. "Say I get the drop on Sammy. Say I dodge the bullets. No way I can handle a dozen mutants with powers I don't even understand." Valentina smirked didn't waver, her confidence unshaken. She leaned back, crossing her legs with a slow, deliberate grace, the movement drawing Frank's eye despite himself. Her black leather pants gleamed faintly, hugging her thighs like a second skin, and the tailored jacket she wore clung to her frame, hinting at the danger beneath her polish. "I have a solution," she purred, reaching into the sleek Birkin bag at her side. Her fingers, long, elegant nails sharp as claws, emerged with a small device no bigger than a cigarette pack. Its surface was smooth, white, almost clinical, with a single button pulsing faintly under her thumb like a heartbeat. This little toy creates a flash that strips mutants of their powers, turns them mortal, just like you and me. It lasts a few hours, maybe a day, long enough for you to do what you do best. Frank took it from her, his rough hands dwarfing the thing as he turned it over. The plastic was cool against his calloused palms, its lightness unnerving for what it promised. He'd seen tech like this before, shield gadgets, stark toys, but never in his hands, never for his kind of work. His thumb brushed the button, and for a split second, he imagined pressing it, imagined the chaos it could unleash. "If I do this," he said, his voice hard, eyes flicking up to meet hers, "you're gonna have to pay a hell of a lot more." Valentina's smirk softened into something almost playful, her gaze lingering on him with a heat that made the air feel thicker. $2.5 million, Castle, she said, her tone dipping low, teasing. "That's the final offer." She uncrossed her legs and leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees, mirroring him now, close enough that he caught the faint scent of her perfume, something dark, spicy, cutting through the safe house's decay. "You're my favorite blunt instrument, raw, relentless, and oh so good at burrowing under the skin. This isn't a smash and grab, it needs a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. I need finesse. And you, darling, can be both when you try." "I don't finesse," Frank snapped, his voice a blade, chipped and jagged from years of cutting through flesh and bone. He straightened, the chair creaking under him, his broad frame filling the space with a quiet menace. "I go in, I hit the mark, I get out. That's the deal. You want to dance, hire a ballerina. Me? I end things. Quick, clean, no curtain call." She waved a hand, dismissive, her nails flashing like tiny daggers in the dim light. "I am very confident in your abilities, Castle. That's why I selected you." Her words were a challenge, a hook sinking into him, and he hated that it worked. The money was one thing, enough to disappear, to bury the past a little deeper. But Sammy Smith was another, a preacher with a flock of freaks, a voice that could twist minds. Frank's gut told him there was more to this, a thread tied to the ghosts he carried, but he'd unravel it later. He nodded once, sharp and final, the device still heavy in his hand. "If the cult's got psychics, how do I finesse that?" Valentina's grin widened, a flash of teeth that promised trouble. "Oh, I've got a treat for you, Miss Frost." The warehouse door groaned open, a slow, mournful sound that echoed off the walls, and Frank's head snapped toward it. A woman stepped through, her presence slicing through the gloom like a shard of ice. Emma Frost. She was tall, statuesque, her white suit pristine against the filth of the place, tailored to every curve with a precision that screamed money and power. Her blonde hair fell in waves, catching the light like spun gold, framing a face carved from marble, high cheekbones, a jaw sharp enough to draw blood, and eyes so blue they burned. Her heels clicked against the concrete, a steady, deliberate rhythm, and a faint whiff of jasmine trailed her, sharp and clean, slicing through the rot. "Frank Castle," she drawled, her voice a silken taunt, dripping with mockery and something darker. The man, the myth, the perpetual storm cloud. Frank's eyes narrowed, his hand twitching toward the gun at his hip, instinct kicking in. "And who might you be?" She glided closer, her movements fluid, predatory, stopping just shy of his space. "I'm one of those psychic mutants you're so afraid of," she said, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My, what a thrill to meet the Punisher in his natural habitat, all grit and gloom. She reached out, her pale fingers hovering near his face, and Frank flinched back, his shoulders squaring, every muscle coiling tight. "Ever heard of a personal bubble, lady?" he growled, his voice low, a warning shot. Emma laughed, a light cutting sound that danced on the edge of scorn. "Easy, Tiger. No need to growl. I'm your guardian angel in stilettos, here to save that battered brain of yours." Frank's glare shifted to Valentina, then back to Emma, distrust etching lines into his weathered face. Mutants were bad enough. Psychics were a nightmare. "Frank, this is Emma Frost," Valentina cut in, her tone firm. "All business now. One of the most powerful mutants in the world. She can place blocks in your brain, preventing the Church of the Saved Psychics from seeing your true intentions." Emma's smile turned smug, her eyes glinting like ice under sunlight. "The Saves got telepaths sniffing around at the front door of their HQ," she said, stepping closer, her perfume teasing the air. "Nasty little mind readers who'd peel your skull open like a tin can. Me? I'm the lock on your vault, a psychic shield, courtesy of moi." Frank's jaw clenched, the thought of her in his head setting his teeth on edge. "You sure it will hold?" "It'll bite going in," Emma replied, her voice softening, a rare flicker of something real beneath the ice. "But you're no stranger to a bruise or two, are you, darling?" He shot Valentina a look, hard and searching. She nodded, crisp and certain. "She's the best, Frank. Owes me a favor. Let her do her thing." Frank's fists tightened, the device still in one hand, the other flexing at his side. He didn't like it, none of it, but if it kept the cult psychics out of his skull, he'd take the hit. "Fine," he muttered. "Do it." Emma stepped in, her fingers brushing his temple, cool and steady. "Hold still. Tough guy. This'll sting like hell." A jolt ripped through him, sharp and searing, like a bullet tearing through his brain. He gritted his teeth, a low grunt escaping as the world blurred, then snapped back into focus. The pain faded to a dull throb, a shadow behind his eyes. "Done," Emma said, stepping back, her chin tilting up with a smug grace. "You're a fortress now, Castle. No one's getting in without my say-so." Frank rubbed his temple, testing the ache, his breath steadying. "Better damn well hold," he said, his voice rough but firm, already shifting to the next move. The hunt was on, and he'd play their game, for now.